The afternoon light angled across Rachel Warren's laptop display from the window of the modest Portland, Oregon library, creating long shadows. She sat at a corner desk encircled with 3 years' worth of missing person records, printouts, and a well-worn picture of her daughter that she carried wherever. The library had become her second home, a calm sanctuary where she might keep her search going without the pitying stares of neighbors back in Pine Hollow, Idaho. Her fingertips rested above the keyboard. 2 days ago, an anonymous email had arrived, vague but particular enough to justify the 8-hour drive from Idaho. She had been pursuing a lead, slender as they usually were, about a sighting close to a youth outreach facility in Portland's Southeast District. She saw a young girl resembling your posters at a Sunday service on Hawthorne Street. She had long brown hair, somewhere about 13 or 14. She was with a group of youngsters entering a white van. Rachel input the address into Google Maps, then changed to Street View to, before tomorrow's meeting with Portland police, get to know the area. The street was caught on what looked to be a summer morning by the digital camera. Trees in full bloom, frozen mid-stride pedestrians. Hawthorne she traversed slowly, examining every business, every face seen enough to be recognized. Then she noticed it. A young woman in a denim jacket with unique embroidered butterflies on the back stood with a few other kids near a parked van. The jackets, Rachel had created those butterflies herself, 2 nights at the kitchen table while 11-year-old Eugene watched, suggesting which colors to use. Thus pattern was obvious. Rachel had given it to her daughter 3 weeks prior to vanishing. Rachel's heart beat strongly against her ribs. She zoomed in, attempting to tilt the view, but Street View's limitations only allowed sight of the back of the girl's head. The hair length matched. The height seemed correct, accounting for 3 years of growth. Not. Once more she muttered to herself, recalling the dozen erroneous positives that had broken her optimism previously. A girl in Sacramento sporting an almost same jacket turned out to be merely a happenstance. A Boise teenager with the same hair hue was safely reported. Every time the crushing disappointment had pushed her husband, Daniel, farther into resignation and quiet. This, however, struck different. Just 4 months earlier, July 2006, the Street View Images timestamp indicated. She observed also the license on the van. She screenshots everything, her hands trembling. Oregon plates. She saved the coordinates, indicating precisely where she had seen the jacket. Hawthorne and 42nd Avenue, in front of a structure with a sign she could hardly see in the image. Cross-referencing with company listings, she changed to satellite perspective, then back to map view. Bridgewater Community Fellowship, she read. A church. Obviously it was a church. Eugene had vanished after youth Bible study at their own church in Pine Hollow on a Tuesday evening in October 2003. 3 more kids left with her, headed toward the parking lot where Rachel was expected to come for her. Somewhere between the church door and the car, 30 Eugene Warren had vanished, yards of well-lit pavement. The police looked for weeks. Volunteers searched the woods surrounding Pine Hollow. Divers inspected the neighboring lake. Due of a possible interstate abduction, the FBI joined in. They examined every registered offender within 100 miles, interrogated everyone who had attended the church that evening, and reviewed security video from companies along every likely path. Nothing. Eugene had simply ceased to exist. Rachel had declined for 3 years to accept that finality. She learned to navigate missing person databases, memorized FBI statistics on recovered children, attended conferences on child safety and abduction cases. She'd distributed 10,000 flyers across 5 states. She'd fielded tips from psychics, conspiracy theorists, and well-meaning strangers who thought they'd seen Eugene everywhere from Vancouver to San Diego. Daniel had stopped coming on these trips 2 years ago. He'd returned to work at the lumber mill, returned somewhat of a regular life, and ceased discussing Eugene in present tense. She never used the phrase, "she's gone," aloud, but Rachel heard them in every silence, every soft hint that maybe she should see a therapist. Rachel never blamed him every time he glanced at her computer and looked away. Grief had pulled them in several directions. His faith had failed. Hers had turned into something more desperate, more intense. She had hurled herself into volunteer work at their church, coordinating events, instructing Sunday school as though remaining close to God might somehow keep her daughter nearer as well. She glanced at the street view picture once again, examining the structure behind the van. Bridgewater Community Fellowship occupied a transformed warehouse. Its white brick facade featured large windows, a mural visible on the sidewall, and rainbow-colored handprints by children. The kind of place Eugene would have been running youth programs, after-school activities. Precisely. Rachel's phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "How's Portland? Any word from the police yet?" She typed back, "Meeting them tomorrow morning at 9. Found something on Google Maps. We'll explain later." His response came quickly. "Rachel, please don't get your hopes up again. Remember Sacramento?" She understood his caution. Sacramento had almost broken her. She'd been so certain that time, had driven through the night, confronted a confused teenager who looked nothing like Eugene up close. The mother of the girl had threatened to call the police. Rachel had apologized through tears, given over her flyers in case they ever witnessed anything, and driven 8 hours home in silence. But this was different. She sensed it in the way her hands trembled, in the sick, sweet fluttering of possibility in her stomach. A mother knows. People said that like it was wisdom, but Rachel had learned it was also a curse. Every dark-haired girl became Eugene. Every laugh that sounded familiar stopped her on the street. Her grief had weaponized understanding and made it unreliable. Yet she included the business phone number for Bridgewater Community Fellowship in her notes. Tomorrow, after meeting with the cops, she would call, inquire regarding their youth initiatives, Sunday services. She would be understated this time. She had learned. As the closing notice for the library blared over the speakers, Rachel closed her laptop, gathered her notes, slid Eugene's photo back into her wallet, and walked out into the Portland twilight.
The city felt different from the silent darkness of Pine Hollow. Here, from 1,000 windows, lights burned. Traffic murmured down the roadways. People strove with intention. Somewhere in this expanse, she pondered, somewhere in the city of bridges, coffee shops, and rain-swept streets, her daughter might be alive. The butterfly jacket haunted her all the way back to her hotel. The East Precinct building of the Portland Police Bureau reeked of burnt coffee and years of red tape. Rachel sat in a Mrs. Warren, Kovach said quietly, examining the picture. "I see why this grabbed your attention, but I must be frank with you. Street view images are occasionally years outdated, and even when they're recent, identification from the back is unreliable at best." Rachel, she prepared herself for this. The timestamp is July 2006, 4 months prior. Her jacket is unique. I made it myself. Kovach nodded and made notes. "I have read your daughter's case file. Regional alerts, FBI involvement, Pine Hollow police were meticulous. The works." She stopped. "But you have been here before. Sacramento, Boise, Eugene, Oregon. Ironically, every time after leads that did not produce results. This is different. They are always present." Kovach's voice had no judgment, only weariness. "Experience. I'm getting you ready, not dismissing you." Rachel grabbed another picture from her folder. Eugene was seen in this one donning the butterfly jacket at her 11th birthday party. Same embroidery pattern, same butterfly's location. I'd put 8 hours stitching those on. Eugene kept shifting her mind on where each one should belong. "So I recall." The detective leaned closer and compared the pictures. Rachel saw hope and mistrust across the woman's face. Kovach said the van in the picture, at last. "Your plate was incomplete." "Registration in Oregon." I noted what I could observe. Rachel flipped her papers across. Kovach dialed an extension on her desk phone. "Martinez. Run a partial plate for me, please. White cargo van tags, Oregon." She read the observable characters off. "Cross-reference with any vehicles registered to Hawthorne and 42nd. Yes, I'll hold." The silence stretched. Rachel's nails dug into her palms.
Eugene had been smaller than other 11-year-olds, a late bloomer who still, while her friends found boys and cosmetics, Rachel played with dolls. Her front teeth had a gap that made her self-conscious. When she smiled, she covered her mouth. She desired to be a veterinarian. Every night of her life she slept with a stuffed bunny named Mr. Buttons. Rachel recalls the last actual conversation they had. Tuesday morning, October 14, 2003. "I will never recall every state's capitals. Mom, why must I know where Boise is? Because knowledge counts, dear, and you're much brighter than you believe." Eugene had rolled her eyes, the universal adolescent expression of loving aggravation. "Will you quiz me tonight after Bible study?" Naturally. But there had been no exam, no goodnight hug, no chance to declare Boise the Idaho capital. A fact now felt like a cosmic joke. Rachel had driven to the church parking lot at 7:30, waited 15 minutes, then walked inside to discover the young leader perplexed. Eugene had departed with the other youngsters just after the lesson finished. She had been sighted walking toward the parking lot. She had vanished as though she had never lived, her backpack found in the church bathroom, but Eugene herself gone. The investigation had eaten everything. Police interviews that lasted hours, polygraph examinations. Daniel had failed twice because his grief registered as deceit. Media coverage turned their tragedy into entertainment. Reporters camped on their lawn, neighbors who stopped making eye contact. The unending parade of ideas: runaway, abduction, trafficking, murder. Each word a new knife. Daniel had crumbled slowly like a building with structural damage that only became visible over time. First he'd stopped sleeping, then eating properly, then talking about Eugene in present tense, then going to church, then meeting Rachel's eyes when she cited a fresh lead. "I can no longer endure this." After Sacramento, he had said her, "I can't continue to watch you chase spirits. She is not a ghost. She is our daughter." She was our daughter. The past tense hung between them like a wall. "Rachel, it has been 2 years. The statistics, I don't give a damn. The FBI declared, the FBI gave up. I won't." He had stopped arguing after that, had just withdrawn into his own grief, enabling Rachel to chase alone. They shared a house, sometimes a bed, but lived in separate worlds. He had accepted Eugene's death without a body, without proof. Rachel could not, would not. Detective Kovach's voice pulled her back to the present. "Martinez claims the partial matches 17 vehicles in the Portland metro area. By registered owner, cross-checking against any criminal records, we may begin narrowing it down." "What about the church, Bridgewater Community Fellowship?" "I know it," Kovach said. "They run a significant outreach program, after-school care, summer camps, youth services. Pastor there is highly esteemed in the neighborhood." "James Wheeler. Been there around 5 years. 3, Eugene gone." Rachel's pulse quickened with the timetable. "Could I come by simply to ask questions?" Kovach paused. "Mrs. Warren, I see your urgency, yet we need to be systematic. If there's any possibility your daughter is tied to that spot, we cannot risk alerting probable suspects." "So what do I do? Sit in my hotel room?" "You let me do my opportunity?" Kovach toned down. "I am the father of 8-year-old girl. I would burn the world to find her if she disappeared. I get it now, then. Sometimes, though, the best course of action is faith in the process." Rachel knew the futility, but desired to argue, to require action. She had discovered the hard truth that striving too aggressively caused others to stop listening. "When can you look at the church?" "Today. I begin making phone calls. Background on Pastor Wheeler. Any allegations or issues leveled against the corporation, interviews with personnel if merited. We shall know if your tip has merit," and Kovach gazed straight into her eyes. "If it failed to do so, then we keep searching. In Idaho, your daughter's case is still active. That implies something. It implies we haven't quit, either one." Rachel grabbed her files and stuffed them back in her folder. She noted her hands were more steady currently. Goals overwrite panic. "Still, one more thing exists. The individual who emailed me the tip said Eugene was exiting the van after Sunday service. That implies someone inside the church remembered her from my pamphlets. Did they provide a name?" "The email was anonymous, sent from a temporary account."
Forward it to me. We'll trace it."
Though anonymous tips are typically designed to stay that way. Kovacs stood, extending her hand. "Mrs. Warren, I promise you I'll take this seriously, but I need you to promise me you won't approach the church on your own." Rachel shook her hand, making no promises she couldn't keep. Outside the precinct, Portland's gloomy sky threatened rain. Rachel sat in her car, staring at the address she had scrawled. Bridgewater Community Fellowship. 14 blocks from where she sat. 20 minutes by car. Near enough to feel Eugene's presence like a magnetic pole. Her phone buzzed. Daniel once again. "Any news?" She wrote back. "Police are investigating. Might take a few days." "Come home, Rachel. You can follow up by phone." She didn't respond. Home felt like surrender, like admitting Eugene was really gone. Here in this, though she was in an unknown city, hope still had oxygen. Rachel started the car, then made a decision that would change everything. She wrote Bridgewater Community Fellowship into her GPS. She would not enter. She would just drive past and view the structure in person. Maybe discover the white van, simply a drive-by. The lie tasted familiar. Hawthorne Street lay before Rachel as a test of faith. The neighborhood had the eclectic, somewhat worn character typical of Southeast Portland. Vintage clothing stores next to Thai restaurants. Roasters of coffee nearby bike repair shops. Light enough to fog windshields, rain had begun to fall, but not heavy enough to evacuate pavements. Their faces hidden, pedestrians passed under umbrellas. Counting down the address numbers, Rachel drove slowly. 42nd Avenue came toward on her right. Her pulse quickened. Then she saw it. Though the mural appeared newer, freshly painted, the converted warehouse was exactly as it had looked in Street View. Bridgewater Community Fellowship claimed the whole property, its white exterior nearly glowing in the gray afternoon sunshine. Over the doorway hung a banner. "Here all are welcome. Sunday services 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Rachel drove into a coffee shop parking lot across the street and parked her car so she had a clear sight of the church's front entrance. She told herself she was simply watching and gathering information. Technically, Detective Kovacs couldn't have anything to object to. Being parked in a public parking lot did not violate any promises. A dozen cars in the church parking area, a few sedans, a couple of SUVs, a Honda minivan with a Jesus Loves You bumper sticker. No white cargo van. Rachel felt disappointment settle in her chest like a stone. But it was Wednesday afternoon. Perhaps the van just came on Sundays when youth programs were active. Maybe it belonged to a volunteer who was not here today. Rachel opened her notebook, started recording license plates seen from her vantage point, old habits from 3 years of searching. The church's front door opened. A mid-40s man emerged dressed in jeans and under a rain jacket he had a flannel shirt. He brought a box of apparent donated canned food toward one of the SUVs. Nice expression, the kind that perhaps smiled easily. He loaded the box, then got back inside. Rachel waited. The rain got heavier, drumming on her vehicle roof. To justify her presence, she purchased a coffee from the store, then returned to her surveillance location. An hour passed. The man made 3 more excursions carrying boxes and organized a food drive. Perhaps the sort of community service building trust that made people believe they were safe. Her telephone buzzed. "Kovacs. Mrs. Warren, I wanted to bring you current. Bridgewater Community Fellowship has gotten in contact with me. Tomorrow afternoon, Pastor Wheeler has promised to meet with me. He says he's glad to work, hopes to support as best he can." Rachel felt her throat closing. "Specifically mentioning Eugene, did you?" "No, I kept it rather generic. Following up on regional advice concerning missing children. Didn't want to frighten anybody if there's anything to find." A stop. "Where are you right now?" "My hotel." "Good. Remain it there. Let me get to work." Rachel finished the call. Guilt blends with resolution. She was not intrusive. She was only sightseeing. It was different. Even Kovacs wouldn't see it that way. Another 30 minutes ticked down. A youthful woman, possibly in her early 20s, pulled a vintage model Toyota to park. She had scrubs on under her jacket. Maybe she was a nurse or a medical assistant, finishing up before evening shifts. She went inside the building.
Then Rachel noticed something. A white cargo van turned onto Hawthorne from another street. As it came closer, Rachel tensed up. The van parked in the church lot, slowly backing into a spot near the side entrance. It had Oregon license plates. Rachel hurried to get her phone, zooming the camera in to take a picture of the license plate. The door on the driver's side opened, and a man with a flannel shirt got out. He was the same one who had been loading donation boxes earlier. He moved to the back of the van, opened the doors, and started taking out what seemed to be folding tables and chairs. Rachel's hands shook as she texted Kovac the number from the plate. Then she watched carefully, hardly breathing. The side door of the church opened again. 3 kids came out, probably about 12 to 14 years old, wearing jeans and hoodies. They went to help the man, each taking a chair or table, laughing about something. They seemed like regular kids volunteering at their church, but one girl had long brown hair tied back in a ponytail. She moved in a way that seemed familiar to Rachel, making her vision go blurry. When the girl turned slightly while holding a folding chair, she saw her profile. She spotted the gap between her front teeth even from across the street when the girl smiled at something the man said. Eugene. Her world felt like it was shaking. Coffee spilled on the passenger seat. Hot liquid spread through the fabric, but she hardly noticed. Every part of her urged her to act, to run over and grab her daughter and never let her go, but she couldn't move. Her grip on the steering wheel was so tight that her knuckles turned white. Because her instinct battled against 3 years of hope that had led to disappointment from Sacramento, Boise, and many other false alarms. Because she had made mistakes before. Because being in grief could make you see things that weren't really there. The girl went back into the church, following the man and the other kids. Rachel made herself calm down and think clearly. She took out the picture of Eugene from her wallet, the one from his 11th birthday party. She looked closely at his face, his smile, and the gap in his teeth. Then she glanced back at the church door where the girl had disappeared. It was definitely her. She felt it in her gut, just like she knows her heartbeats.
But knowing something and proving it are not the same. She could call Kovac right now and ask her to come quickly. But what if the detective told Rachel to stay away? What if they were planning a careful operation that would take time? What if the man in the flannel shirt took the kids somewhere else before the police could step in? The church door opened again. The man came out all by himself this time, got back into the white van, and drove off. Rachel watched him turn left onto 42nd Street and then blend into the traffic. She stayed still in her car, her mind racing with ideas. She could follow the van and see where it went. She could walk into the church now and face whoever was there. She could wait for her meeting with Kovac tomorrow and trust that everything would be okay. Or she could lose Eugene once again. Rachel's phone buzzed with a message from Kovac. I got the license plate. It belongs to the Bridgewater Community Fellowship vehicle used for their youth programs. Nothing suspicious is on record. I'll still talk to Wheeler tomorrow. Just hang tight. While her daughter was only 50 yards away, and while proof of 3 years of constant lies sat in a warehouse posing as community service, Rachel made her choice. She got out of her car, locked it up, and walked across Hawthorne Street in the rain. Her legs felt like they weren't connected to her body, moving automatically. The entrance of the church seemed bigger with each step. Everyone is welcome here. The door opened easily. Inside, it was warmer and brighter than she had expected. There were wooden floors, exposed brick walls, and rows of plain wooden benches. A cross was at the front, with tall windows that let in the gray daylight. The aroma of coffee mixed with the scent of old books filled the air. Voices could be heard from deeper inside the building, along a hallway to the right. "Can I help you?" Rachel quickly turned around. A young woman dressed in scrubs stood in a doorway labeled Office, holding a stack of flyers. Her smile was warm and sincere, the kind that shows someone had no reason to be suspicious. Rachel's voice wobbled a little. She tried to sound relaxed. "I just moved here. I wanted to find out about your programs." "Sure thing. I'm Amy, and I coordinate the volunteers." The woman put down the flyers and reached out her hand. "We have services on Sunday mornings and evenings.
Bible study happens on Wednesdays. The youth group meets on Fridays. Pastor Wheeler is usually around if you'd like to have a talk." "Youth group," Rachel repeated. "What age groups is that for?" "Middle school and high school. We have a fantastic group of kids. They are actually here now getting ready for tonight's meeting." Amy pointed down the hallway where the laughter was coming from. "You can come and watch if you want." Rachel's heart raced so fast she thought Amy might hear it. "That sounds great. I'll just get Pastor Wheeler. He prefers to meet new members face to face." Amy walked toward the back offices before Rachel could say anything. She stood there by herself in the entrance, rain from her coat dripping onto the wooden floor. Down the hallway, laughter and youthful voices bounced off the walls. One of them could be Eugene's. 3 years older, 3 years lost, but still alive. She heard footsteps coming from the office area. Rachel turned to see who was approaching. Her entire body was tensed up like a spring ready to bounce. This was the moment. There was no going back now. Pastor James Wheeler had a friendly face that would fit right into church newsletters. He was clean-shaven, had warm brown eyes, and a smile that reached all the way to the laughter lines on his cheeks. He wore that same flannel shirt Rachel had noticed from across the street, now a little damp at the shoulders from loading the van. His handshake was strong but not aggressive, the practiced grip of someone used to greeting new people. "Welcome to Bridgewater," he stated with the soft authority of a practiced speaker. "Amy says you're interested in our programs." Rachel forced herself to maintain eye contact, to maintain her expression neutral despite the screaming in her head. "Yes, Well, you've come to the right place." Wheeler gestured toward the hallway. "We're a small congregation, but we believe in active service, food pantry, homeless ministry, faith through action, as we say." "Youth outreach," Rachel kept her voice steady. "What does that involve?" "We run programs for at-risk kids, children from difficult home situations, foster care, families in crisis. Give them a safe place, hot meals, mentorship." Pride colored his remarks. 12 youngsters make up our present program. They reside in our residential institution upstairs during the week. On weekends, when practical, go home. Rachel's stomach clenched. Residential institution. Kids who lived here. That is incredible. Need close supervision. State licensed. Completely authorized. Work closely with Child Protective Services. Wheeler's expression stayed open. Think these kids require stability. Many come from homes where drugs, abuse, or neglect are daily reality. We offer spiritual guidance, structure, and support. Every phrase rang true, caring, exactly the kind of program a concerned community would sponsor. Rachel recalled Eugene emerging from the Pine Hollow Church 3 years ago. A good child from a stable household, not the profile Wheeler portrayed. "Might I visit the facility?" She said the request before she could stop it. Wheeler's grin flickered for just a millisecond. "Usually, visitor background checks are necessary. Child, you get safety measures, right? I can, however, show you our shared spaces." Leading her down the hall past the office where Amy had returned to her work, he said. The inside of the building was superior to its outward appearance from the warehouse. Carefully rebuilt, fresh paint, wall motivational posters. "Dream big," one declared. "You are loved," another.
They passed a vast room with the 3 kids Rachel had seen earlier were circling folding chairs. She saw them from the doorway. The brown-haired girl was turned toward her back, arranging papers on a table. Wheeler remarked, not decelerating, "That's our meeting space," adding, "Tonight we are addressing goal setting, aiding these youngsters in imagining futures they might not have thought possible." Wheeler kept a steady, professional, and friendly comment as they climbed stairs to the second level. "Naturally, we have 6 bedrooms upstairs and 2 children per room with rigorous gender segregation. Bathroom amenities, a study area, a recreation room, everything state inspected and approved." The residential area was equally well kept. Doors stood open on several rooms, showing neat twin beds, small desks, personal belongings. One room had posters of basketball players. Another displayed drawings that looked elementary school level, despite the middle school age Wheeler had mentioned. The children seemed well cared for, Rachel observed, her mind cataloging every detail. We treat them like family." Wheeler paused at a doorway. "Sarah, our newest residence room, came from a terrible circumstances in Salem 3 months ago. Hasn't contacted her biological parents since, but she is doing well here." Rachel peeked inside. 2 beds, 2 desks, a shared bookshelf. The room was painted pale yellow, cheery, and nameless. One side looked scarcely lived in. Little decorations, clothes folded with military precision. The other side burst with personality. Sketches fixed to walls, river stones on a tattered copy of James and the Giant Peach on the nightstand, Eugene's favorite book. Rachel's vision tunneled. She gripped the doorframe. "Are you all right?" Wheeler's hand touched her elbow, steadying her. "Yes, sorry, just felt dizzy for a moment." She forced herself to breathe normally. "Low blood sugar, probably. I skipped lunch. Let me get you some water. Wait right here." Wheeler headed back toward the stairs. Rachel stepped into the room the instant he vanished. Her hand shook as she walked to the bookshelf, perusing titles. All volumes Eugene had treasured. Bridge to Terabithia, The Chronicles of Narnia, Where the Red Fern Thrives. Thousands of children read these novels, however. It turned out nothing. She opened the drawer of the nightstand. Inside, there was a sketchbook filled with pencil pictures, including horses, trees, and a drawing of a woman that looked eerily similar to Rachel, done by someone who had trouble remembering the fine details. At the bottom, the word Mom was written in small letters, but it was crossed out. Rachel's hand shook as she turned the pages. There were more drawings, like a house that looked a lot like their place in Pine Hollow, a dog that resembled their neighbor's golden retriever, and a mountain scene that seemed to be from Idaho. She heard footsteps on the stairs. Wheeler was coming back. Rachel closed the sketchbook and tucked it back into the drawer. She exited the room just as Wheeler arrived with a bottle of water. "Thanks," she said, taking it with trembling hands. Wheeler's gaze shifted to the open door and then back to Rachel. His smile stayed, but there was a change behind it. He seemed to be thinking. "You seem very interested in our youth program. Do you have experience with at-risk kids?" Rachel's thoughts raced. "I lost a daughter years ago, so I guess I feel a pull to help kids who need it." Wheeler's face softened with real sympathy. "I'm so sorry for your loss. That must be so hard. When did it happen?" 3 years ago, she replied, mixing truth with what she didn't say. "And you've come to Portland for a new start?" Rachel nodded, feeling uneasy about how easy it was to lie now. "Something like that." Wheeler looked at her intently, as if you were judging her. She could feel his suspicion hidden behind his caring look. "Well, if you want to volunteer, we have openings. After a background check, of course." "Of course," Rachel replied. She took a sip of the water to give herself a moment to think. "Actually, I should probably head out. I don't want to take up too much of your time." "Not at all. Let me show you out." They went down the stairs together. Wheeler's hand was close to Rachel's elbow, but didn't touch her. It felt possessive. When they reached the main floor, a girl with brown hair came out of the meeting room carrying an empty box. Their eyes met, and the girl stopped moving. Realization washed over her face. It was instant and impossible to ignore. Her lips parted a little, forming a word that she didn't say. "Ellie, sweetheart," Wheeler said calmly, stepping in between them, "can you take that box to the recycling?" The girl, who was Ellie and not Eugene, looked away. "Yes, Pastor Wheeler." Her voice was soft, used to following orders. She quickly walked past them to a hallway in the back, keeping her head down, but Rachel noticed it. The moment she recognized something, the fear that came after. Wheeler firmly nudged Rachel toward the exit. "It was nice to meet you, Ms. Anderson." The untruth slipped out easily. Mary Anderson. "Ms. Anderson, I hope you can join us for Sunday service at 10 a.m. or 6 p.m., whichever is better for you." He was now holding the door, opening it. "And please consider helping out. We always need caring people who know what it's like to lose someone." Rachel found herself back outside, rain soaking her hair. The door softly shut behind her with a final click. She heard the lock click into place. She walked back across the street like it was automatic, got into her car. Her hands shook so much that she dropped her keys twice before getting them into the ignition. The sketchbook, the books, The girl's face, Eugene's face, 3 years older, the fear in her eyes when Wheeler stepped in. Rachel took out her phone. Her fingers fumbled on the screen. She dialed Kovach's direct line. "Detective Kovach, it's Rachel Warren. I'm at Bridgewater Community Fellowship."
The words spilled out quickly. Eugene is here. She's alive. She's using the name Ellie. Pastor Wheeler is there, and there are other kids with him. It's a program where people live there, and it has the state's approval. He's using that to hide what he's really doing. You need to get here right away. There was a moment of silence on the phone. Then Kovach spoke in a calm but serious voice. "Mrs. Warren, did you go into the church after I asked you to stay put?" "Yes, but that doesn't change anything." "What's important is, did Pastor Wheeler see you? Did you let him know who you were?" "I used a fake name, but Eugene recognized me. He saw it happen. Detective, he understands something isn't right. If he moves the kids, stay where you are. Don't go near the building again. I'm sending officers right now." Kovach's voice got sharper. "And Mrs. Warren, we need to have a serious talk about getting in the way of an investigation." The call ended. Rachel stayed in her car, looking at the church door, her phone resting on her lap. Inside that church, Eugene was alive, breathing, and there. After 3 years of hoping and feeling haunted, her daughter was only 50 yards away, and Rachel had just warned the person who had her. Rachel waited in her car, watching the church entrance for 23 minutes before the first unmarked police car showed up. It felt like it took forever. Every second she imagined Wheeler putting the kids into a white van, escaping through a back door she couldn't see, getting lost in Portland's complicated streets, with Eugene gone again. But the church stayed quiet. The lights were on inside. There was no movement or chaos. Either Wheeler didn't see the threat, or he felt safe in what he was doing. Detective Kovach parked next to Rachel's car, looking serious. 2 more unmarked vehicles parked in good spots around the block. Rachel saw 6 plainclothes officers, plus Kovach. It wasn't a SWAT team or anything noisy like that, just calm, professional people getting ready. Kovach walked over to Rachel's window. "Don't get out of the car, I mean it. You've already caused enough trouble today." "Is this enough support? What if he tries to escape with the children?" "Mrs. Warren, we have officers at every exit. Child Protective Services is on the way. A judge just issued a special warrant for an urgent inspection based on what you told him and the van's registration." Kovach looked tense. "Wheeler is going to have a really tough night." "Please," Rachel whispered, "don't let him hurt her." Kovach's face relaxed a little. "We know what we are doing. Stay here." Rachel observed the detective cross the street, accompanied by 2 other officers. They moved slowly, but professionally. To someone watching, it might have looked like church leaders arriving for a meeting in the evening. Kovach knocked on the front door and waited. There were no forceful entries or loud orders, just a polite knock, and Amy, the person in charge of volunteers, answered the door. Rachel noticed her surprised face as she signaled to the officers to come in. The door shut behind them, and then there was silence. The building seemed to absorb them. Rachel's phone vibrated. She remembered she needed to update Daniel. "Rachel, where are you?" "Kovach's office said she's at the church with the officers. What happened?" "I found her," Rachel replied, her voice trembling. "Daniel, I found Eugene. She's in there. The police are taking her now." There was a long silence on the line. Rachel thought the call was lost. "Daniel, please don't." His voice sounded hurt. "Don't put us through this again. Sacramento nearly ended your life. Please don't." "It's really her. I recognized her face. There was a sketchbook with drawings of our house and me. Daniel, it's truly her." She heard his breathing and could sense the tug-of-war between hope and the desire to stay safe happening in real time over the phone line. "I'm getting on a plane," he finally said.
Don't do anything until I arrive. Promise me that." "I promise." Through the church windows, Rachel noticed some movement and shadows moving around. She pictured Kovac going up those stairs, opening the door to the yellow bedroom and discovering the sketchbook that Rachel had left slightly crooked in the drawer. Evidence. Proof. Reassurance. Her phone rang again. It was an unknown number. Rachel almost decided not to pick it up. A man's voice she didn't recognize introduced himself. "This is Agent Marcus Chen from the FBI. Detective Kovac told me about your daughter's situation. I'm working with the police in Portland who are there right now. I need to tell you something important. James Wheeler is not who he says he is." Rachel held the phone tightly. "What do you mean?" "We checked his background using federal systems while officers were on the way. James Wheeler is a fake identity. The man in the church is actually named James Whitmore. He is wanted for child welfare fraud in 3 states. For over 10 years, he has been using different religious groups to hide what he's doing." The news hit her hard like cold water. Child welfare fraud? What does that mean? "He finds kids who are in tough situations, like from bad homes or foster care. He fills out forms saying he will help them through church programs. Everything looks fine at first glance, with state licenses and inspections. However, many of these kids were never placed with him legally. He takes them. But it's a bit more complicated. He goes after kids whose parents can't or won't look for them. Runaways who have been let down by the system, foster kids who have aged out or gotten lost in the system." Chen paused. "Your daughter doesn't match that pattern. She had a good home, caring parents, and the police responded quickly. She shouldn't have been on his radar." Rachel's mind wandered back to that Tuesday in October 2003. Eugene had been leaving our church with friends in the bright parking lot. "He was at our church the night she went missing. We are looking into that now. The Pine Hollow police are checking the visitor records from that evening. If Whitmore was there under a different name, he could have noticed which kids were easy to approach and which parents were too distracted." Rachel felt a wave of nausea. "I was late to pick her up that night, just 5 minutes late because I stopped for gas. She was waiting there by herself." "Mrs. Warren, this isn't your fault." But she thought it was her fault. Just 5 minutes. That's all it took for a predator to take advantage of a chance.
To go up to a trusting child with a made-up emergency and take her away while Rachel was getting gas just 2 miles from the church. Rachel saw more movement through the church windows. She recognized Pastor Wheeler, James Whitmore, being escorted by police officers. He seemed calm and compliant, with his hands visible, showing no resistance. He looked like a guilty man who was sure that his papers would clear everything up. "What happens next?" Rachel asked Chen. "The officers are making sure all the kids in the building are safe. CPS workers are here to check on every child's situation. We need to confirm their identities and find out which placements were real and which ones were fake." There was a pause. "Your daughter will be taken away from Whitmore right away. But Mrs. Warren, you must get ready. She has been with him for 3 years. The mental effects, I don't care. I just want her to be safe." "She is safe, but it won't be an immediate reunion. There are procedures, health checks, mental health evaluations, and interviews to learn what has happened to her." Chen's voice softened. "This is just the start of a long journey." Rachel watched more shadows through the windows. Children were being gathered together. CPS workers were arriving. An ambulance pulled up, its lights off, with medical staff, not emergency responders. Everything was calm, organized, and professional. "How many other kids?" she asked. "The initial count is 11, including your daughter. Their ages are between 10 and 15. We are working on identifying all of them and finding their families." 11 kids. 11 families somewhere who might be getting calls just like Rachel was now, or who wouldn't hear anything if their kids had been overlooked by the overwhelmed system. The front door of the church opened.
Kovacs came out first, followed by Amy, who looked stunned and was hugging her own arms. Then the children began to come out, each one with a caseworker or officer. They looked more confused than scared. Some were holding backpacks that seemed packed in a hurry. Others were holding stuffed toys or books. Rachel looked at each person's face with worry. Then she spotted her. Eugene walked out between two women police officers, wearing jeans and a gray hoodie. She seemed taller than Rachel remembered. She looked thinner, and her hair was longer, tied back in a braid instead of the loose curls she had at 11. But the space between her front teeth was unmistakable when she looked around nervously, and the way she huddled her shoulders was totally Eugene. That was the defensive way she always acted when she felt unsure. Rachel's hand was already on the door handle before she remembered her promise to Kovacs. She made herself stay in the car, tears flowing down her face, watching her daughter being led into a CPS van. Eugene glanced across the street right at Rachel's car. Their eyes connected through the rain-streaked glass and 50 yards of pavement. Eugene's face showed a mix of emotions: relief, fear, and something like apology all mixed together. Then she got inside the van, and it drove away to wherever CPS takes kids in situations like this. Kovacs came back to Rachel's car. She's going to Emmanuel Hospital for a checkup and then to a temporary foster home until we figure out the legal stuff and how to get her back. I want to see her tomorrow after she gets checked and talked to by experts. Mrs. Warren, I know this is tough, but we need to do this the right way for Eugene and for the case. The case. Whitmore will face serious charges like kidnapping across state lines, child welfare fraud, and identity theft at the very least, with more charges still being looked into. Kovacs leaned against Rachel's car, looking suddenly tired. You were right, I'll admit it. That sketchbook you mentioned, the books, her reaction when she saw you, it all adds up. She told the officers her real name is Eugene Warren. She's been waiting for 3 years for someone to rescue her. Rachel couldn't say a word. She placed her hands on her face, and her shoulders were trembling from tears that had been building up for a long time. We are still trying to figure out how he did it, Kovacs said softly. Whitmore says that every child in his program was put there legally through the right methods. He has paperwork for all of them. It's fake, of course, but it looks very real. He has kept this scheme going for years because he knew how to take advantage of weaknesses in the system. How did he persuade her? Eugene wasn't just some kid who ran away. She wouldn't have gone with a stranger. We'll learn more after the interviews, but so far other kids have said that Whitmore builds trust first. He volunteers at churches, makes himself look like a youth pastor or counselor, and spends weeks or sometimes months spotting moments of weakness. Then he creates emergencies that make it seem okay to separate kids from their families. Rachel thought about Eugene leaving after Bible study, young and trusting, easy to fool if approached by someone who had been helping at their church, someone who knew her name and could create a believable emergency. She called herself Ellie. Why? Wheeler said that Whitmore gives the children new names, telling them their families are gone, dead, or can't take care of them. He gives them new identities and cuts ties with their past. Kovacs' face grew serious, showing psychological control masquerading as help. More vehicles pulled up. Rachel realized with a heavy heart that news vans had arrived. Cameras were being set up across the street, and reporters were checking their microphones. You need to leave before they notice you. Once they link you to Eugene, they won't stop. Where do I go? Back to your hotel. I'll call you in the morning with details about when you can see Eugene. For now, just try to relax. You found your daughter, Mrs. Warren. Against all odds, you found her. Let that be enough for tonight. Rachel nodded slowly. She started her car, her hands still trembling, and drove out of the parking lot. In her mirror, she watched the church fade away. The white walls were now shining under police lights.
The place changed from a safe haven to a scene of a crime. Eugene was alive. Somewhere in the city, she was being checked over, questioned, and going through a system that was meant to be helpful, but it was taking too long. It was so frustratingly slow. She wasn't home yet, not safe in Rachel's arms, but she was alive. After 3 years of looking for her, that would have to be enough for tonight. The family meeting room at Emmanuel Hospital smelled a lot like cleaning products and fake lavender. Rachel was sitting in a chair meant for waiting, keeping her hands in her lap so they wouldn't shake. Detective Kovac stood by the window, giving her some space. A child psychologist named Dr. Patrician Guan was across from Rachel, looking kind in a professional way. "Mrs. Warren, I want to get you ready for what's going to happen," Dr. Guan said softly. "Eugene is willing to see you, but she is feeling a lot of different emotions. She feels relief for sure, but she is also confused, scared, and even angry. 3 years is a long time for a child to grow. She isn't the same 11-year-old who went missing. I get it. She has been told many times by Whitmore that you left her behind, that you stopped looking for her, and that you have started a new life without her. She is starting to realize that those were lies in her mind, but her feelings are still catching up." Rachel nodded, knowing that understanding things in her head was different from truly accepting them. "Can I see her now?" she asked. Dr. Guan got up, opened the door, and talked softly to someone in the hallway. Then Eugene came in. She was 14 now, almost as tall as Rachel. The baby fat had gone from her face, and it was now more defined with higher cheekbones and a sharper jaw. She was wearing oversized hospital clothes, sweatpants, and a t-shirt that looked big on her thin body. But her eyes were still Eugene's, even if they now held darker feelings that weren't there before. "Hi, Mom," Eugene said quietly, standing close to the door. Rachel stood up slowly, worried that any sudden moves might ruin this moment. "Hi, sweetheart." They looked at each other from across 6 feet of plain carpet. 3 years full of sadness and searching, along with a hope that seemed impossible, were all put into quiet. Rachel felt an urge to run and hold her daughter tightly, never wanting to let her go again. But Eugene looked unsure and guarded. "I'm really sorry," Eugene said softly. "I'm sorry I trusted him. I'm sorry I stopped trying to run away." "Oh, sweetie, no," Rachel responded as she took a step closer. "You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing at all. Do you get what I'm saying? This isn't your fault." "But I should have realized. I should have known he was lying when he told me you and Dad were gone. I should have known. You were just 11 years old. He was an adult who tricked you. That's not your blame." Rachel's voice broke. "I'm the one who should say sorry. I was late that night, just 5 minutes late. If I had been on time, Pastor Wheeler said he had been watching me for a long time." Eugene spoke quietly. "He knew my routine. He would have found another way." Pastor Wheeler. Eugene still called him by the fake name he had made up to look honest. Rachel felt anger towards James Whitmore blaze through her sadness. "Can I hug you?" Rachel asked. "I've wanted to hold you for 3 years, but only if you feel okay with it." Eugene paused, then nodded. Rachel quickly crossed the room and fell into her daughter's arms. Eugene was taller now, but she still fit perfectly against Rachel's shoulder and still had a hint of the lavender shampoo she loved. Rachel held her daughter, crying, feeling Eugene's delicate shoulder shake with tears. Dr. Nguyen quietly left to give them some space. Kovac stayed by the window, secretly wiping her own tears away. "I prayed every night that you would find me. Eugene murmured into Rachel's shoulder. "Even when he said you were gone, I prayed you'd return, thinking maybe heaven is real and you could hear me. I heard you. I never stopped looking. Not for one single day. Your dad didn't either. We never gave up." They sat closely together on the hard hospital couch. Eugene snuggled against Rachel just like she used to during movie nights. Rachel gently ran her fingers through her daughter's hair, soaking in the reality that she was with her. What happened that night? At the church, Eugene took a deep, nervous breath. He walked up to me in the parking lot. He had been helping out with our youth group for about a month, so I recognized him. He told me there had been an accident and that you and Dad were at the hospital. He said Pastor Collins sent him to bring me. I trusted him because why wouldn't I? He was from our church. Rachel felt a tightness in her throat. Pastor Collins, the minister in Pine Hollow, had passed away from a heart attack 18 months after Eugene went missing. He never knew what really happened. He died thinking he had failed to protect a child in his church. He drove me to what I thought was a hospital, but, Eugene went on, it was a place he made look like one. There were fake nurses and fake doctors. He showed me a room where he claimed you and Dad had just passed away. There were bodies covered with sheets, but I couldn't see their faces. He said it would be too upsetting for me to look. Rachel felt nauseous just thinking about the clever trick. Then he took me to a funeral.
There were pictures of you and Dad everywhere. He said the church had set it up. Other kids were there crying. It felt genuine. Eugene's voice was empty as he shared these details without really feeling their impact. After the funeral, he told me that I would be living at his church's youth home. He claimed my grandparents were too old to take care of me and that foster care would keep me away from other kids who had lost their parents. He insisted this was a better choice. There were other children. 11 of us at Bridgewater. He referred to us as the lost flock, saying we were special and chosen by God to overcome tragedy. Eugene's laugh sounded bitter. At 14, he seemed too old for his age. Some kids believed him completely. They had been with him for a long time and didn't remember their real families anymore. He gave everyone new names. I was called Ellie. He said Eleanor meant light and that I needed to accept my new identity to heal. Kovac spoke from the window. Eugene, you mentioned some kids had been with Whitmore for years. Do you remember any of their real names, if they shared them? Eugene shifted away from Rachel a bit, thinking. There was a boy named Marcus who said his real name was Christopher, but he wasn't sure anymore. He had been there since he was 8. That was 6 years ago. She took a break. And then there was Sarah, the girl I shared a room with. She said she believed her real name was Jennifer, but she couldn't recall her last name. She had been with Pastor Wheeler for 4 years. We are trying to find them all, Kovac said softly. What you told us is really helpful. The door opened. Daniel was standing in the hallway looking messy from his overnight flight from Boise, with his eyes red and chaotic. He had shaved off the beard he grew since Eugene disappeared, making him look much younger, more like the father that Eugene would remember. Dad? Eugene's voice was quiet and unsure. Daniel made a sound that was a mix between a laugh and a cry. He walked over and hugged both Rachel and Eugene tightly. They formed a trio that had been apart for a long time. I'm really sorry, Daniel whispered. I lost faith. I lost hope. I'm really sorry. You are here now. That is what counts. They stayed like that for a few minutes, a family coming back together out of love and presence. 2 weeks later, Rachel was in a federal courtroom watching James Whitmore's hearing. He was in an orange jumpsuit instead of his flannel shirt, but he looked calm, almost peaceful. He said he was not guilty to all the charges against him. There were 11 counts of kidnapping across state lines, fraud in child welfare, stealing identities, and conspiracy. His lawyer argued that Whitmore truly thought he was saving children from bad situations. My client has dedicated his life to helping those who are forgotten. The lawyer said that he was giving children stability, education, and spiritual help when families let them down. Rachel sat between Daniel and Agent Chen, trying hard to keep quiet as the lawyer described Whitmore as a misguided hero instead of a bad guy. Yet the evidence was much louder than his excuses. The FBI found 18 years of repeated fraudulent activities. Whitmore had lived under 6 different names in 9 states, always going after churches with programs for kids. He took advantage of the trust that these religious groups had in their volunteers. He made fake documents for child protection services, created phony court papers, and invented entire made-up stories about kids he had taken. Eugene was where he made his first big mistake. She came from a stable family with parents who cared and had the means to look for her extensively. When she went missing, it sparked an immediate response from the police, got the media involved, and even brought in the FBI. She couldn't just fade away like his normal targets. He got greedy, Chen explained during a break. Most of his victims were truly at risk, like runaways, foster children, and kids from homes with addiction or abuse problems. But Eugene was different. Maybe he liked the challenge of taking a child from a good family. Maybe he reminded him of someone. We might never fully understand why he did it. The trial was going to drag on for months or even years, but Whitmore would never be free again. The proof against him was too strong. 3 months after Eugene was found, Rachel spoke in front of the Pine Hollow Community Church congregation, sharing her story. It took her weeks of therapy before she felt ready to go back to Idaho, to the town where her nightmare started. But she was determined to come and take control of her story. "I want to talk about faith," Rachel began, her voice strong even with 500 people staring at her. "For 3 years, people kept asking how I maintained my belief, how I kept looking when the police said the chances were slim, when my husband suggested I needed to face the worst since every lead went cold." She paused, spotting Eugene in the front row between Daniel and Dr. Anguan, who had come to support them. "I wish I could say it was a strong belief in God's plan that never wavered, but that wouldn't be the truth." Rachel's honesty resonated through the quiet church. "I doubted all the time. I was angry at God. I made deals, begged, and demanded explanations. My faith didn't make me strong, it kept me moving forward. There's a difference."
A predator used our church and other churches across the country as places to hunt. He took advantage of the trust we give to those who say they have faith. That's a betrayal that shakes our beliefs. Rachel held onto the podium tightly, feeling the sadness of her community around her. "But I've learned something important. One dishonest person doesn't ruin faith. The volunteers who handed out flyers, the church members who prayed for Eugene, Detective Kovac who investigated the case even when it looked bleak, and the CPS workers who helped save children. They also show what faith really means, faith that acts, faith that keeps going even in tough times." Eugene looked up at her, nervous but genuine. "My daughter is back home. 10 other kids were saved because we found Eugene. Their families are experiencing miracles they had lost hope for." Rachel's voice grew stronger. "That's not because I'm extra special or my faith was better than anyone else's. It's because I refuse to let evil win. It's because a mother's love doesn't give up. It's because technology gave me tools that earlier generations didn't have. It's because kind people chose to step in." She stepped down from the podium and went back to her seat. The pastor got ready to finish the service, but Eugene raised her hand. "Can I say something?" she asked quietly. Rachel was surprised and nodded. They had agreed that Eugene would just come to watch and not feel any pressure to speak. Eugene stood up. Her 14-year-old body was still thin but getting stronger. She faced the congregation that had prayed for her for 3 years. "I want to thank everyone who searched for me, who put up posters and shared my pictures, and who never lost hope." Her voice was quiet yet clear. "Pastor Wheeler told me I was forgotten, that I didn't matter enough for anyone to keep looking. But my mom never believed that. She knew I was important. She knew I was worth finding." Tears ran down many faces in the church. "I'm not the same person I was at 11. What happened changed me. Therapy helps, but I will probably be sorting through this for years." Eugene's truth was clear and strong. "But I'm here. I'm alive. And I want to support other kids who are still missing. So my mom and I are starting a foundation that will use technology to help find missing children."
We will teach families how to use digital tools, databases, and social media, all the things my mom used to find me. Rachel didn't know Eugene would share this plan. They had talked about it in private, but hearing her daughter say it out loud made her feel so proud. "We're calling it the Persistent Hope Foundation," Eugene continued, "because that's what my mom showed me. Hope isn't just sitting back and waiting. It's something you actively do. It's unstoppable. It won't give up." The audience stood up and clapped without being prompted. Eugene went back to her seat and took Rachel's hand. Daniel reached over, making a connection. That night, Rachel and Eugene walked to the church parking lot where Eugene had vanished 3 years ago. The sun was going down, casting golden and amber colors over Idaho's mountains. They stood on the spot where everything changed. "Are you scared?" Rachel asked. "A bit," Eugene said, "but not as much as I expected. Pastor Wheeler doesn't control this place anymore. It's just a parking lot. He's in jail. I'm free." Rachel held her daughter's hand tighter. "You are so brave. I learned from you." Eugene looked up at the darkening sky. "Do you think the other kids will be okay? The ones from Bridgewater?" "I hope so. Most of them are back with family. Some are in foster homes while their situations are sorted out. It will take time, but they're safe now. That's what counts." "Because you didn't quit." "Because I couldn't imagine giving up," Rachel gently corrected. They stood quietly together, watching the stars appear as twilight deepened. The parking lot used to symbolize the hardest part of their lives. Now it was just a flat space, losing its power in front of them. "Ready to go home?" Rachel asked. Eugene nodded. "Yeah, I'm ready." They walked back to the car together, mother and daughter, 3 years apart, healed by love that never stopped searching. Behind them, the church was lit up against the night sky. Its stained glass windows were shining with light. It wasn't a place of pain anymore, just a structure made of glass, wood, and stone. Truth won, hope won, love won, and Eugene Warren was finally home for good. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and share this video with someone who likes true crime stories. Your support helps shine a light on cases that might be forgotten. What cold case do you think needs more focus? Comment below. Every unsolved case means a family is still waiting for answers, still hoping for the closure that finally came to the Martinez family after almost 50 years of searching.